So, this is a chestnut oak tree.
This is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yesterday, when me and Ben were out at the Jefferson Memorial Forest, we found some of these, but not nearly in the abundance that we were seeing right here.
Yeah, and that's the trend with a lot of, deep, maybe forest species, and having the same species we put in a big open sun park area, just that abundance of the energy that they need to be able to produce all this fruit. So
I notice that all the time in Michigan, that oak trees in the open produce acorns, oak trees in the forest almost never.
yeah, absolutely.
Same thing in Kentucky.
You got it. Yeah, it's
Okay.
the same overlap situation. The only reason why I would ever go into a deep canopy to get hickories or acorns is maybe if I was just specifically looking for a species.
Okay. So tell me about chestnut oaks then.
Yeah, so it's one of the predominant oak species that I like to harvest just because of the sheer amount of nut meat that you get from them. There are some drawbacks with the chestnut oak. So for example, they have a pretty high tannin content, so the leaching process takes about 2 weeks of actually decanting that water out and then refilling. That's about as long as it takes to actually have no astringency. If you're just honest with yourself after you're decanting, you're tasting, the mealed acorn, it's like, okay, no astringency, you're good. It's usually about 2 weeks. But then it's a brilliant flour or meal that we like to use and cook with. Another drawback is they seem to be pretty grub non-resistant. So the acorn weevils really love this one. It's at this point like a daily routine where I go and check out the cookie trays and the dehydrator racks full of all of these right now that are still currently drying, to check for the grubs. Because you can harvest some and they don't seem to be infected at all. And then 3 weeks later, as they've been drying in your home, sure enough, there was, an acorn weevil in there that hatched and ate its way out. And then, you had those they kind of build up in your tray that you have them drying in. So a lot of weevil problems, but also too, these trees, when they have a mast year, they can just dump hundreds and thousands of pounds of acorns on the ground. So
And it's on a single tree.
On a single tree, yeah.
Okay.
This exact tree actually, I've gotten as much as 15 gallons of acorns from in a single, I think, hour to maybe an hour and a half visit.
15 gallons.
15 gallons, yeah, 3 5-gallon buckets.
And this same tree, this same year, you harvested 15 gallons of nuts.
Correct.
And we're still seeing probably another 5 to 10.
Yeah, and the only reason that I collected those 15 gallons, that limit was brought just because I had no more buckets, because I could have gotten a ton more. So one of the other drawbacks, in addition to the grubs and just being mindful of that, which really, this kind of almanac that we create as foragers, about going out, it's all about timing. And this is certainly no exception. So with being in the white oak group, these germinate the exact same time that they fall. They'll almost immediately attempt to germinate. So you'll see this radical shoot out. And that doesn't mean that the actual acorn is a bad acorn at that point, but you would want to process it. So you don't want to harvest a bucket of these with just a bunch of radicals, because that also can oxidize the nut meat inside and cause spoilage, which a lot of acorns can become spoiled at this time of the year.
Okay, white oak groups especially.
Yeah, and red oak, of course, they germinate the next spring. So
Yep.
longer forage and harvest time.
What is your preferred method for leaching acorns?
Sure, yeah. So we take these, and as you can kind of, feel like it just has a nice elongated shape to it.
Yep.
So normally, I don't crack these at all. What I'll do is I'll put them on a large wooden cutting board and take a paring knife and I quarter these.
Okay. They
They cut very easily that way. The testa inside mainly adheres to the actual shell, so you don't have a ton usually. It just really depends on when you're getting them as far as how much that testa, that kind of brown paper coating, adheres to the nut meat or the shell. And then after I've done that, we use our Vitamix and turn it into a coarse meal. And then we put it in our glass ball jars, and we just fill it up with water every day, and we decant 2 to 3 times a day.
Okay.
And that kind of tannic water starts out as being really dark yellow, and then over time it becomes kind of more of a milky red color.
Why should we eat acorns?
That's a great question. That's a question I'm very enthusiastic about. I kind of wake up for that idea and that question. Really, it's because I feel a strong connection with them because living in Kentucky, where it's such a dominant species of tree. Oaks make up 80% of our forests in Kentucky, and so you're really supporting a native elder, if you will, of our state when you're eating the acorn and connecting with it that way and learning the different species, because there are a ton of different variances in species and in tastes as well. And so, you know, and with it just being such an abundant food source, it's just, you know, one way to have an entire year's worth of wild food in your pantry after you've put in maybe 3 to 4 weeks of processing them. It's just, it gives, it always just gives. So
I love them. I just wanted to hear that from you. Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I've read multiple books on the subject. I'm amazed that the whole Northern Hemisphere seemed to, prior to grain agriculture.
Yeah, exactly. And so the acorn, and you're exactly right. So the acorn is, you know, I don't think it was really, you know, rice or wheat that was the original staple. I really do believe and feel that it was the acorn.
Yeah.
And then if it wasn't, that it could have been.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And then I'll just like feel like this really like intuitive thing, and I'm like, I need to go down this trail and just check it out.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes that leads to beauty, and sometimes it doesn't.